Hey, good morning, afternoon, or evening, good people, wherever you are, wherever you happen to be, and however we're together. Thanks for being here. I'm Dave, and this is Dave's Head. So, what is in my head, or what's in my head, to be more conventional? This past weekend was probably one of the best experiences of my life. I experienced and went to the 101st Eastern Regional Conference for my fraternity, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated, in College Park, Maryland. As you may or may not know, I was running for an office on the regional board, Director of Publicity. My campaign for Eastern Regional Director of Publicity was a success. I was elected to a 2-year term to the position on the board. Although I ultimately ran unopposed, if you're not privy, treating it as if it was an unopposed position would have been a mistake. And so I did not do that. I ran a campaign with no assumptions. As you may or may not know in parliamentary procedure, people can run from the floor. But no one did. I was extremely surprised by the outpouring of support and expressions of anticipated change to come from brothers in the Eastern region, my fraternity brothers. Their confidence in my abilities and what I can do on a board and in this position was humbling. Very thankful for the confidence of not only their vote, literally, but the confidence of their vote. But that wasn't all. The second and biggest thing that happened this weekend was receiving the highest honor that my region and my fraternity can bestow on a brother, the PBS, or Prominent Brothers Service Award. It's been renamed actually at this regional conference to honor a really great man who left us, I believe, last year, Larry Mungin. And so Larry was in my chapter actually for a while. He lived in Jersey though. And so the PBS award was renamed the Larry A. Mungin Prominent Brothers Service Award. And so as I'm struggling a little bit here, not as much as I was the last couple of days, but as I'm struggling a little bit here to contain the emotion of this great honor, the waterworks, or we'll call it allergies, commence when I got word. I saw on the screen the presentation from the PBS committee that my name was on the list as a recommended brother to receive that award. And then having the body in the Eastern region bring up a motion to accept those recommendations and induct essentially the brothers into the PBS award class and club, if you will. Having my dean, who is responsible, the primary person responsible for bringing me into the fraternity, and my Sigma mentor, who is someone I've grown to come to love, respect, seeking advice and counsel from, and really view someone as a really honorable and great man. There, along with my TO, there to witness my pinning, witness my medal put across over my neck, was a memory I'll never forget. To be in that position, to have my friends who drove from all the way from Pennsylvania, 3 hours away, my good friends Frank and Cindy, best friends of mine, and have others who supported me. They couldn't attend in person, but supported my campaign. Just humbling. Just something again I'll never forget. But an amazing weekend. And then I come back home on Sunday and I have this surprise waiting for me after I arrived. Making more waterworks. Let me tell you something. I literally am tired of crying. I'm not a crier. That's just not me. But apparently it is me. So I got to deal with it. But there was a lot of effort, energy, preparation, anticipation for not only the election but also for awards. There was awards luncheon. I didn't get any awards there, but I got the ultimate award when the PBS committee voted out. and I'm not a nervous person. I don't get nervous in public spaces like that. I don't get nervous for moments. But and part of the drama was the PBS committee reported out last. And so there were a lot of things moving agendas, changing agendas, things moving around. We're running a little late. And so as we got towards the end of the agenda, which was the last item on the agenda for the entire conference, the burning in my chest, which I recognize as just a strong, tense anticipation feeling that I get sometimes. It in that moment, it kind of overwhelmed me a little bit. My palms weren't sweaty or anything like that. I wasn't swaying back and forth or shaking, but it was more so I just had to kind of close my eyes and just take the moment in and wait for the report to come out and just kind of, listening to the words that are being said about the report, explaining and all that stuff, and me just kind of really fogging out a little bit, waiting for ultimately the next screen to be shown. And then, of course, naturally, most of us start reading from top to bottom, and you see my name was not the first one. So just kind of having that moment where I scroll through the names and getting to my name and seeing it on the list, just, waterworks followed. Hugging brothers coming from across the room to shake my hand, give me a hug, offer me congratulations, tell me it was well-deserved. Having some of my closest friends in Sigma there as well in the room. Just amazing feeling. And I can't thank, I could at some point stop thanking, but I can't thank the brothers enough who supported me for my chapter, Lambda Delta Sigma. I couldn't thank enough some of my closest friends and family who were there to support me. And it was just an amazing time. And so, with the election being done and now the first post-election board meeting being in the books, and work begins now. Now all this, as you go day by day, you start to get, that warm and fuzzy goes away. That pen will sit there until it's needed. That metal will hang there until it's needed. The recognition, and the honor won't go anywhere. But now the work begins. And so that's where I'm passionate about, getting things done. And so just, excited. Amazing, amazing weekend. But one of the big things about that conference and that weekend is like, any family agree, disagree, laugh, cry. But one thing about this great fraternity that I'm a proud member of is that the brotherhood and fellowship is unmatched. And especially in this region that I belong to. And so seeing a lot of, I got so many pictures on my phone, I got so many pictures on my camera, so many pictures of brothers posting and tagging me. And just seeing how to go from March 10th of 2011, when I joined this fraternity, to just over 13 years later, and the amount of relationships that have been built, the amount of brotherhood that's been shared, the amount of, confiding in, supporting that's occurred over this time. And I know there's fraternities all over the place. There's none that I can see that would match this. And so one of the best parts and my most favorite parts, despite the awards, is the fellowship and the brotherhood, the stories, the laughs. So happy to see you. So happy to see you. And just to know even brothers who were going through physical and health issues, and to see them in person, because there's been a lot of brothers been lost the last, couple years, including brothers very, very close to me. And so that fellowship is something that I cherish as well. I'm looking forward to the next time I get to see my brothers. The second thing that's on my mind is obviously March Madness, which I always tell you is my favorite time of the year. First, congrats to UConn on the men's side and University of South Carolina, or USC, don't get it confused with Southern California, on the women's side. But let's be clear. Women's basketball is a story. And I get it. My bracket pool, guess who I had winning the championship? UConn. Guess who won? UConn. I won all my pools. Yep, that's what I did. But women's basketball is a story here. And well-deserved it should be. Caitlin Clark, phenomenal, amazing shooter, was beaten by a team. And, one of the things that I love about team sports, and obviously my favorite team sport is football. My favorite individual sport is golf, but tennis is right there. I used to play tennis way back in the day. But one of my favorite things about team sports is when you have a cohesive, well coached, performative team, they 9 times out of 10 will outshine and beat a team that's dominated by an individual. And there are rare exceptions. There's some individuals you just can't stop from performing. I get it. But this was a prime example of team basketball beating Caitlin Clark. Now, while she shined a bright light on the sport, I think Dawn Staley shined a light on team sports. And I think that needs to be said. The great, extremely great Dawn Staley. With Caitlin, I have serious concerns about her game translating to the WNBA. There's a whole lot of Raven Johnsons in the WNBA. Let me tell you, who will play great defense, who will get in your face, who will be physical with you, who will make you earn every single thing. And that's what Raven Johnson did. First period, and it always, the men's, women, men have halves, women have quarters or periods. I believe they call it periods instead of quarters. But first period or quarter, Caitlin was on fire. 18 points, just, dominating the defense that she was getting or she was seeing. And I remember one of the conversations I had because Matteo and I were actually driving back home during the first half. We got here for the second half and watched the whole second half in the house. But one of the conversations that I remember having was, Iowa was up 10-0. I think maybe even 11-0, or at some point had an 11-point lead. And I remember as the rest of the first half started progressing, South Carolina just kind of kept hanging around. 8-point lead, back to 10. 7-point lead, then it's 8. 6-point lead, just chipping away. And I remember saying that if they don't get back to a double-digit lead before the half, this game is pretty much over. Because you're not going to survive as a unit, South Carolina's. I mean, they're basically throwing out a whole second starting lineup as their backup line, right? And so Caitlin getting defended the way she was after the amazing adjustment by Dawn Staley. Let's be clear about that. She saw that her initial plan and how she wanted to guard Caitlin just wasn't working. And there's a rumor that Raven Johnson said, "Coach, I got her. Put me on her." And she trusted her player and she trusted her history and her coaching skill set to say, you know what, you got her, Raven. And from that point forward, held her, I believe, 5 of 20, 12 points, 4 turnovers. I believe that's what the stat line was. At least that's what I've seen. She needs, I think, get her weight up. I think she needs to translate her game a little more or work on her game a little more. She has deficiencies. She can shoot her ass off. Let's be 100% clear about that. But the NBA is not going to be open shots. The NBA is not going to be the defender falling for the little crossover move she does. Defenders in the NBA are not going to let you just go to your left and shoot because she shoots when she goes to her left, she drives when she goes to her right. Typically. You got to elevate your game a little bit. And so I think if she does that, she'll be an amazing player in the WNBA. But the only way it's going to translate, she's got to work on her deficiencies. But let's circle back for a second. Let's stop and give Dawn Staley all the roses. Every single rose. Philly zone. We claim her every single day. To take an undefeated team to the Final Four and lose last year with a chance to go to the championship. Lose all your starters to the WNBA. Come back undefeated again and this time win the championship as an undefeated team is legendary levels of coaching. And I think those flowers, those roses, those whatever your favorite, most immaculate flower you got out there is, she needs to have a whole bunch thrown at her. Just toss them all at her. I mean, just think about this. To trust a whole bunch of freshmen to build up that team. And one of the things she's always said is, if you want to come here and dominate and do this and score all these points, this is not a team for you. But if you want to come here and play team basketball and win games, have a chance at the championship as a team, then South Carolina's for you. And that's what this is all about. 100% that's what it's all about. And so congratulations again to Coach Staley and USC. Congratulations to UConn. Apologize, I forget the name of the coach right now. But he's a firecracker. And to think about it, back-to-back championships for UConn, possibly should have been back-to-back for South Carolina. Might be next year. We'll see. But March Madness still and will be my favorite time of the year. Now we got the Masters kicking off. And so looking forward to that kicking off this weekend as well. Adapt to Adopt was created for adoptees to have a safe space to be themselves. They provide recreational support to adopted children and youth through recreational support groups, a mentoring program, sports and community service projects, and more. Tap in on Wednesdays for Adapt to Adopt's What's Up Wednesday video series, an informational check-in update video for their supporters. You can watch it on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. For more information, visit their website at www.adapttoadopt.org. So the third thing that's on my mind, sponsored by Adapt to Adopt, is the solar eclipse. Now look, I get it. I 100%, 1000% get it. It's a phenomenon that's a once in a lifer to many people. And I think the next one's 2 years or something like that. And obviously a different location. As a science, math, data guy, borderline, sometimes all the way nerd, I have a appreciation for the rarity of the moment. I think if you're into that, then 100% make your way to the full 100% coverage area. If you can, go see it, celebrate it, enjoy it, feel it, love it. That's like if, back in the day, some people, Michael Jackson used to perform. They'd be falling out. Listen, that's your thing. I'm not falling out over no guy. Just my thing. But I get it. I totally 100% get it. Wasn't really that big of a deal to me yesterday. I think we were only 89% covered, so some of the sun went away for a little bit. 89% of it. Here's the problem I have with it, though. And so I saw coverage. I was watching the coverage because I was curious, places where you could actually see it. It's cool to see, if you actually get a view of it. But I saw some coverage yesterday where there appeared to be a native African American, and I say native because of the dialect and the accent in which he spoke. And that's an assumption, but I think I'm pretty safe in making that one. And a Caucasian American on a news broadcast, smiling, embracing each other, and stating, and I'm paraphrasing, that on that day, yesterday, was the one day that we can all come together and witness something bigger than our differences and minuscule issues. My problem is this. Why does a moon blocking out the sun create an environment for peace and human indifference? And when I say human indifference, I mean we don't care about our differences. We don't care about black, white, rich, poor. Why does an eclipse rise or create the situation where we rise to actually respecting each other, respecting our similarities, respecting our differences? Why isn't that every single day? And we turn these things, events, into situations where we say, look, we can get along. Well, no. Do this when the cameras aren't rolling. Do this when there's no eclipse. Do this when we don't go to church. Do this when we're not in the public eye. And so I look at it as, why can't people be good humans, love and respect other humans every single day? We don't need something rare or even guidance to understand right and wrong, and that treating your fellow man or woman as a human being should be what is done. But unfortunately, it looks like we do. Unfortunately, it looks like we only can do this if we put ourselves in the situation, or the cosmos puts us in the situation where we come together, where we don't think about that's a black guy, or that's a white guy, or that's a rich guy, or that's a poor guy, or that's an American citizen, that's an immigrant, natural born American citizen, and there's an immigrant. And that is the problem that I have for what I characterize as the prospects for a peaceful society, right? Like, just look at our politics for the reality of our dire prospects. And I'll say that again. Just look at our politics for the reality of our dire prospects. Did an eclipse change anything about that? No. And so I'm all for the eclipse. I'm all for having a great time around it. I'm all for doing that. But don't feed me or force feed me or spoon feed me these feel good stories about kumbaya and we can get along and we're only doing it for one day. Because tomorrow we're going right back to treating each other like shit as human beings. Why don't we act like every day's an eclipse? Why don't we try that? See if that actually gets us somewhere as a society. Can't be that hard. We just showed it yesterday. I saw more smiles and laughs. I saw more people with their mouths wide open looking at the sun, which I never get, by the way. Because all you need is one bird to fly over. Now you got glasses on and shit in your mouth. But that's neither here or there. We clearly showed yesterday we can coexist peacefully, happily. So why not treat every day like that day's a solar eclipse? And that's what's in my head. So, the mission of Choose FI International Foundation is to, quote, bring financial literacy and financial independence concepts to underserved communities, military families, and students across the country. They serve school going children from kindergarten through high school, active duty servicemen and servicewomen, and working adults who are mired in debt. In 2021, they produced an article entitled 10 Scary Financial Literacy Statistics 2021, where they provide 5 scary financial literacy statistics, that's a tongue twister, for kids and teens, and then 5 of those same things for Americans. I don't know why they say kids and teens and Americans. Why not just adults? But not my problem. So I'm going to go through the 5 for each of those and talk about them a little bit. So starting with kids and teens. The first one, they say 1 in 5 teens lacks a basic foundation to build on for financial literacy. This comes from a 2015 PISA study where 22% of teens lacked a foundation in basic financial skills. That means that they say, they did not have a background to do basic things like budget for beginners, which is going to kind of become a theme of this little intro here. Number 2, teens spend an average of $2,150 in 2020. Now, they actually say this is down our low point for the last 20 years, but their main concern is that they're spending it on the right things. Just because it's down, what are they actually doing with that 2150? Number 3, which is really scary, 74% of teens don't feel confident about their financial education. And this is from a Green Light study in 2021 that found that nearly 3 out of 4 teens find that their financial literacy is very lacking. Number 4, 46% of teens don't know what a 401k is. Now, there are many of you out there who, when I read this, we're going to think the same thing I did. I know a bunch of adults that don't know what a 401k is. But it's important that teens know and learn about retirement and saving for retirement and 401ks. So that's kind of the focus of this. But yeah, there's a lot of adults that have no clue about a 401k. The last thing about teens is 32% of teens can't identify the difference between a credit card and a debit card, which of those 5, I actually find that probably the second scariest other than that 74% number. Just imagine spending money on a card and thinking you have 30 days to pay it off, and then you look at your bank account and the money's going because you don't understand the difference. Or imagine thinking you're spending some money you put aside and you get to 30 days from now, you got a $400 minimum payment because you got a 28% credit card interest rate. Those little things like that. So with the Americans, or we'll just call them adults, 1 in 3 Americans delayed a major decision due to finances. It's actually an improvement, they say, from 2015, where more than half of Americans or adults reported delaying that decision because of financial reasons, meaning there was no emergency fund, there was no savings for whatever this big purchase may have been. Number 2, Americans pay an average of $577 in late fees, overdrafts, and fraud-related charges. Now, I'm not the expert, but I feel like the first 2, yes, are related to budgeting. The last one, fraud-related stuff, I mean, there's things that have nothing to do with budgeting where you can be liable financially for some fraud stuff that happens. But 577 actually sounds low to me too, just because banks charge for every damn thing and any damn thing. I think it was a couple years ago, I'm not sure which president was under, where it was passed that you can't repeatedly charge people late fees for multiple things. You have to kind of charge them after a certain point and stop for that day. And you can charge them tomorrow, but you can't charge them more today. So that's probably keeping that number down a little bit. Number 3, 21% of Americans, speaking of emergency funds, have no emergency savings. So there's roughly 1 in 4 Americans have no emergency savings, meaning medical expense, catastrophe, you lose your job, you get sick. You have nothing to safeguard you from financial ruin. Number 4, which is probably of these 5 is going to be my most scary. 4 out of 5 parents wish they learned more about money as a kid. And what that tells me is this kind of cyclical thing, right? Number 5 is actually going to speak to that. But number 4 talks about parents who are now parents and have children wish they learned more. So what are they actually teaching their children? Which leads to number 5, which actually might be the scariest. 59% of parents are uncomfortable talking to their kids about money. So you have 4 out of 5 who wish they learned more, and almost 3 out of 5 who don't want to really talk to their kids about finances at all. So what are we actually teaching our children? How are we actually setting them up for success? And so I'm talking about all this, of course, because I'm going to bring in my guest for this episode, Rachael Hanible. She is a certified financial education instructor and founder of Missing Piece Financial Group. She has, for the last 10 years, been a personal finance coach for adults, helping them reach their short-term and long-term financial goals. She has developed a full finance curriculum for kids starting at the age of 3. She has taught finance classes for kids and teens at over 120 schools, universities, programs, and nonprofit organizations. Is a personal finance instructor for Wagner Junior High School here in Philadelphia, or not here. I'm in Delaware. I used to live in Philadelphia. Because I claim Philly. I'm not going to let Philly go. Sorry, I grew up in South Philly, born and raised. Became debt free, paying off over $150,000 worth of debt. Now, some people may find that to be a lot. Some may find it to be a little. We're going to talk about that. She also saved a year's worth of income in cash, and her credit score is 850, which is slightly higher than mine. So we're going to talk about that too. Believes it is her mission to give the next generation of millionaires a head start on the road to financial freedom. You may have seen her featured locally on CBS 3, and I keep saying locally like I live in Philly, but it's a local station. CBS 3 and Fox 29, Philadelphia local stations for those outside the area. Or if you listen to radio in the area, you may have caught her monthly money segment. Monthly money segment on the Source Radio, WURD Radio, a local radio station to Philadelphia. But we're happy to have her, and Dave said, so welcome, Rachael. How's it going?
Thank you for having me. It's going well. How are you?
I'm good. As we talked about before we started recording, I'm coming off a long weekend where I wish I'd have stayed. But I got a busy month coming up. I'm actually away again this weekend and away the weekend after that. So it's April's busy, busy, busy. But I'm doing
Awesome.
great. The weather's great. My allergies aren't acting up yet. So feeling pretty good.
Awesome.
But I did give you a nice little intro, but I like to have my guests introduce themselves to my listeners and watchers. So if you could take a moment and tell the people who you are, what you do, and what you're about.
Well, I am Rachael Hannibal, and I am from North Philadelphia. And
We won't hold it
I
against you, but it's okay.
from North Philadelphia.
Gotcha.
Um, I just grew up in an area where I say that the hope was low and the crime was high. We had a lot of money problems. Everyone around us had money problems. Um, and then we went all our years in school and no one mentioned anything about money. No one mentioned budget, credit, any of those things. And so I just decided that I wanted to be the change I wanted to see. And so I started just going to school, see if they'll let me come in. And so far, I've done 130 schools now and universities. Just being able to give them the information that, like you mentioned in your statistic, like I really wish I had that. And so when I went on to become financially free, just educating myself, I just wanted to go back into my community, go back into North Philly, and just kind of help the people there. And I'm also a personal finance coach for individuals, for adults. So I have individual sessions, one-on-one sessions with adults, and I've been doing that for 10 years as well. Um, so it's a little bit of everything.
Okay. So we could hold some money if we need some from Rachael, right? All
Yes.
right. Gotcha. But let's start with that the story of 150 in debt now, and how you got to that point. And again, I kind of alluded to this. To some people, 150K in debt is a lot. Some it's not that much, depending on how you're rolling. But what was that light bulb moment where you were triggered to just start some payoff plan or the payoff journey, and what methods did you employ to do so?
I was only making $8.75 an hour when I had this great idea to be debt free, to have a perfect credit score, and all of the things. I had these high hopes. And obviously that wasn't enough. It wasn't enough money, obviously. So I had to figure out a way that I can make extra money on the side. Um, I was selling Avon. It's funny. I feel like that dates me a little bit, but
Yeah.
I was, yeah.
My grandmother's selling
um,
Avon.
I was selling Avon. I was working at, this is another thing that dates me. Eckerd.
Mm.
Eckerd is not around anymore.
Yeah.
Um, I was there when Rite Aid bought them out. It's funny. So I just was, doing a lot of different things. I was teaching Excel classes in my 1 bedroom apartment. It was just like all these things that I was saying to myself, like, how can I increase the money coming in? And then just creating some type of budget of knowing what money is going out, and just being consistent with it. It really started with my student loan debt and my car payment at the time. Um, and I had an extra $5 to pay on my student loan debt every month, and an extra $20, and that's where I started, and I just made sure I was consistent. Any extra I could do, I just kind of continued to do that, and was tracking my progress. And I've been 13 years without a car payment, 11 years without student loan debt. Um, so yeah, and I had some credit card debt. I had some a personal loan too. So there was a lot of different things that kind of just made up that number. But uh, yeah, it was just about being consistent, about looking for ways to widen the gap between the income and the outgone, and making sure I was strategic about where I put that money, and being consistent with it.
It's interesting you mentioned extra $5 here, extra $20 there, because I always use the analogy, or you probably heard this before. If you can go to the club on a weekend, you can put in extra money towards your debt. Um, is it is a principle of getting rid of debt the number one thing that people should think about? Really, just looking at where you're just spending things that you might not need, right? Or spending money on things you may not need. That extra drink, and I love my Long Island's, but one becomes three, becomes six. But maybe I get five today and I take that 10, 12, $14 and just throw it towards a bill. Is it something is it that simple as a way to pay down debt faster?
Yeah, it's definitely a great way to start. It's definitely a great way to start because I always say look for money in your habits, look for money in your spending habits, look for money in your credit card statements from last month, or your banking statements. Like, where is there extra money there that you could have put to your debt, if that is your goal. We all have something. It's something. We all have something, and I tell people, um, when you're paying off debt and when you're just building wealth, the consistency in some cases is more important than the amount, right? Because you're really training your mind to uh, to think of the bigger picture on a consistent basis, and that um, was why I tell people, even if it is $5, still do it. It's a great start. It's still something that helps you just kind of train your mind to say, this is I'm still working on this goal, even if I only have a little bit. Every little bit counts.
I like that nugget. The consistency is more important than the amount. Just that $5, that $10, 20. I like that.
Yeah,
So
I
let's.
say every drop fills the bucket.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I say, if you're building your emergency fund, you read the stats on those too. Like, every drop fills the bucket. And again, we think it was only $5, it's only $10, but that's how it's leaving your home, $5 and $10 at a time. So it
Mm-hmm.
should be able to stay in the same way.
And next thing you know, I spend 10,000 on tacos a year. That type of stuff. So teaching kids is obviously important to you. Um, Talk about where that passion came from and how you got started. Why the focus on kids?
I kind of fell into it. I wasn't planning on teaching kids originally. I had been a personal finance coach for adults for years, and I've always heard adults say to me what you mentioned in that statistic about, like, man, coach, I really wish I learned this stuff. I really wish we had something for my son. I really wish we had something for my daughter. And because the sessions were always virtual, like even before the pandemic, I was always in people's homes. So talking through screens. And so somebody's kid would get on the, you know what I mean, get on the Zoom or whatever. And I'd be talking to them. And it kind of just grew where the parents and my clients would say, you really should try to, do something with kids. You're really good with kids, all right? Like, you're really good. My son repeated something you said. My daughter's repeating something you said. Like, and it really started when I wrote Amber's Magical Savings Box. I said, okay, well, I'm not going to teach kids, but I'm going to just give them a book. I don't know why I thought that was going to work.
Okay.
And
There's
so
nothing wrong with a college try,
I was like, how about I just do a book and then you could
Mm-hmm.
just get the book for your kids? And then that just kind of, grew a life of its own. Amber's Magical Savings Box is an interactive children's book that teaches kids about money management, but it's a little bit more than just a book that you pick up and put down. There are affirmations in the back. It asks them about their dreams and goals, where they can write out their money dreams and goals. So it's pretty something you have to keep coming back to, and I think that's one of the things that set that book aside from other books for kids. And so that just kind of just grew a life of its own, and people started asking me to come to a school or come to this place and that place, and it just grew.
Gotcha. Now I have to ask, between kids and adults, what's your experience? Is it harder to see positive personal finance results in adults, or long term, obviously, with children? And why do you think one is more hard than the other?
I get asked this question a lot. I actually have to do a class for kids when we're done today, and the young people, my young millionaires, they're not as concerned about time. They're not in a
Mm,
hurry. They're not worried about how long is this going to take. Is it how long until I'm rich, coach? They're not,
mm-hmm.
they're not asking that. But the adults, when I go teach the adults, they're like, okay, so 6 months, all I have to do is this for 6 months, and then I'll have you
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? They think they're
That's not
that
how it
they're
works
more,
at all.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like it's very rare. I guess it's weird that's the case, because you think kids are in a hurry to, they think everything is a snap of a finger, but it's very rare in my classes where the kids will ask me, how long is this going to take? But I always hear from the adults. And so being able to trying to break that mindset of like being in a hurry to do something that, or to get out of a hole that it took you 20 years to get into, right? Or um, I'm not saying one is harder than the other, but it's just a little bit more interesting because of the mindset is already really set to say, like, I want the microwave version of this. And I always say, like, you really want to put your money in a crock pot, like not in a microwave. And you would think I wouldn't have to explain it to adults, but I do.
Yeah. I mean, but adults have impatience problems as well. So, but following up on that, what concept would you say easily translates between the two groups, between kids and adults?
Peace. I named my
Mm,
company Missing Peace, PEACE, because the goal has always been to help people find peace on the road to financial freedom, because we all always hear about these far away goals. Like growing up, it was like, hey, when my kid gets out of college, I'll be able to do this or travel, or when I retire, I'll be able to do this. Like it was just like everything that had anything to do with peace was not today. It was not tomorrow. And so even young people can identify with like some level of like feeling good, feeling better, sleeping better tonight, like planning to do better and feel better and sleep better in the future. Even young people can kind of connect with that. And a lot of adults are not at peace for various different reasons. And I think that that's just something that it's just a language that we all can speak. And so that I kind of lean into that daily. Like, what can we do to get you closer to peace? And that's how I serve my people.
well, I mean, money was it money buys love sometimes, even though they say it doesn't. Buys peace too.
Yeah,
I'm sure that
it
person
buys
that won that
peace.
$1 billion in Oregon feels a lot of peace today.
Yeah, peace, comfort. Like money can
Hmm.
buy some stuff. Money can buy you options.
Yeah, get you in
So
spaces.
yeah.
Yeah. So us talk about investing. How do you view the market at this time? And I had a conversation with a guest earlier this season. We talked about the market a little bit and whether it was a good vehicle to leverage to pay off debt or to jumpstart, say, retirement using the market to do that. And outside of the 401k, I'm talking about. What do you think about that?
Um, Definitely when it comes to retirement, yes, I wouldn't leverage it right now for debt. Just not right now. I wouldn't do that. I think that this is a great time to make sure that your foundation is firm. If it is your emergency fund, if it is your credit, we are, the next year I can imagine is going to be, rocky for a lot of people with, for various different reasons. Um, so I think that this is a great time to use both of your hands. I think that we often say, hey, stop doing this to do all of this. Like put all of your money in investing or put all of your money into your debt or whatever it may be. I think that this is the great time to make sure that all of those things, even if it's a little bit just all spread out, is strengthened month by month and week by week and paycheck by paycheck. I think that's what we need to focus on now.
Gotcha. Yeah, one of the questions, other questions I asked this finance person earlier in the season was around 401ks. And say for whatever reason you lose your job, you leave your job, you get that option, obviously, what to do with your 401k, transfer it, cash it out, whatever. Is it a good idea for, say, someone to take that 401k, cash it out, pay off their debt, assuming that the 401k covers the debt, and whatever money left over, either save it or invest it or put it in a CD or whatever? Or is it better to just transfer that 401k, let it keep building, and make sure your retirement is cool?
Yeah, I would just transfer and let it keep building. Um it's very interesting because that number of that I paid off in debt in my debt is actually going to change in the next couple of months because I'm going to announce that I paid off my 30-year mortgage 22 years early. And I've been like just documenting my journey, and there's a lot of different shortcuts that I could have taken to do this earlier because sometimes social media will have you feel like you got to hurry up and make this announcement. Um, and taking from my 401k was one of those options that I could have taken. I didn't do that, but um, that is even part of me documenting like why I decided to just wait, keep the money in my 401k growing, and just get extra money to be able to just pay off the debt and not have to worry about I took from here to put it over here. Um, so I'm always going to lean on like holding on to it if you can, letting it grow if you can. Of course, there are situations where we're not going to be able to make it without some help. Um, so that's a little different, but if you can keep it in there and keep it growing, I would suggest that.
And the last one on this sort of debt relief topic, personal loans. Now you mentioned you had a personal loan as part of the debt that you had. Where do you see personal loans in this whole space as a safeguard emergency thing only, to consolidate and lower interest rates? It's always one of the options of personal loans, or is it something you don't see as a very good tool to pay off debt, especially if you have credit cards, you keep them open, you spend it, next thing you know you got a personal loan and a credit card. Another story. I did that before. But where do you see personal loans at?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't do a personal loan to pay off debt. Yeah, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't. The rates are so high on personal loans. Like it's almost hard to find. Even credit cards are like, depending on the situation, it's better than a personal loan. Um, so yeah, and then this it's just it hurts your credit more than it would otherwise. There's just too many downsides, and I feel like our people was doing personal loans more before when we didn't have as much access to credit. I feel like we have more credit cards now and more bank accounts now and more options now than we did before when our aunties and uncles and all of them were going down to check cashing place or going down to this place or getting a, you know what I mean, getting a personal loan. So I think that this we need to keep that as the second last resort. We'll have the 401k borrowing from that as the last resort, and then we can do the personal loan the second last if we need to.
Gotcha. Yeah, I have just a side note. We're actually about to talk about credit with my next question, so it popped in my head. I have this credit card. It's my oldest account from 2002 or 2003, something like that. Oldest account, crazy high interest rate, like damn near 30%. And so I use it I put a renewal on my office subscription every year just to keep it active. So, and then I just pay it right back off. But I reached out to them. They're like, no, we don't lower interest rates. I'm like, if you weren't my oldest account, I would just close you.
Yeah.
Because I know what closing that account would do to my credit score. And that would
Yeah.
just piss me off. But talking about credit, what do you find is the most misunderstood concept when it comes to credit?
Ooh. I think with social media we have a lot of misunderstood concepts of credit. I think that we look at credit as like free money. I think that's a thing. That's definitely a thing now. Which again, I feel like is like a complete flip from like our parents. They were like staying away from credit because they knew it wasn't free money, right? And so it's like now this generation just looks at it as free money. I think that's really interesting. So yeah, that would probably be number one. Like, hey, just go ahead and get funding or get this. If we can get you that, and you can do whatever you want with it and not have to pay it back. I think we also again, I think that that microwave mentality also applies to credit too, because we're just like, let me pay this credit repair person who's going to wave the wand, and I'm going to get 70 points overnight or whatever it may be, right? And we just really don't take the time to really just educate ourselves on like, hey, some of that person can do a sweep and like delete a whole bunch of stuff off of your credit, or try to, and some of that could be hurting you if they delete the wrong thing. Like you mentioned your oldest account, right? I have the same thing with my first credit card I ever had. I still have it open, and they hide too, and they don't want to give me I put my little Netflix on there every month and call it a day. But yeah, I think that those two things, the free money thing, and then like the hey, the I can just wipe it clear or whatever it may be, shortcut thing when it comes to credit. I think that those are the two things that's really, really messing us up, I think.
Gotcha. Yeah, that oldest account of mine is annoying just because, like I said, it's darn near 30%. So yeah, I don't carry a balance on it at all. But if I decided to use it for something, I'd have to pay it off because I'm not paying 30% interest on anything.
Yeah.
Um, and they refuse to lower it. It's just just they hold the power. It's their card. So
Hmm.
you talked about a little bit your children's book, Amber's Magical Savings Box, but talk a little more about it. What success have you seen from the book? What's some of the feedback you've got? What do you hope that either parents or children, because children they have accounts too, they have Amazon and all this stuff too. Um, what do you hope whoever buys it, what they can get from it, or what's the number one thing you want them to get from it?
So the book is for ages 3 to 10, and one of the stats that I had read was that, or studies I had gone through, it basically said that your financial habits are formed by the age of 7. And that really messed me up because for someone like me, that wasn't good news. Knowing what I had experienced, uh, by the age of 7, when it has anything to do with money, it just wasn't good news hearing that. And so it was a little bit alarming to me. And so my intention was originally not to write a book, but to find a book that was already written that I could kind of just refer, my clients who have kids, like, hey, and then I didn't find anything that I thought was helpful to create that positive connection with money early on. And so that was my intention when writing the book, of having these young people think of money as their friend and not their enemy as early as possible. Um, and having them in the mindset of like, hey, I have some level of control, and I will in the future have even more control. In the book, Amber, she wants this magical toy that they have at the school, all the kids have, and she doesn't want to be like the rest of the kids and just ask her parent to buy it. She doesn't. She wants this. She has this bright idea that she wants to just earn money to buy the magical toy. She wanted to be different, and she does little things around the house. She does these things, and it just documents her journey of her saving for this toy. And we have to do some math to see if she reach her goal or not. There's even a part where she loses some money, and we have to kind of like comfort her through her losing some money. And it kind of just, again, just prepping our babies for this love story, or this loving relationship that we would love for them to have with wealth, with abundance, with financial freedom, and just letting them know that there are tools out there, letting them know that it is your friend, and there's a whole lot you can do with it, as long as if you take care of it, it will take care of you. So that is the ultimate feeling that I want our young people to get out of Amber's Magical Savings Box. It has been, it's an Amazon bestseller. I did a 15 stop Barnes and Noble book tour, and they sponsored the whole book tour. Um, and I've been able to literally meet thousands and thousands of young people and teach them about money on this journey of this book tour. So it is really good. It's done well. The reviews are great, and it's still, all these years later, still getting feedback. Still, people still buying it. So I definitely appreciate. Target picked it up. Walmart picked it up. So it really, really became a thing. Even though I didn't plan for it to be that big, but it became a thing. So it's great.
Very nice. Congratulations. So, talking about the age of 7 being that age where your financial mindset is formed, it takes me back to video games. Because at that time I was playing the Street Fighters and the Jousts, and talk about dating yourself. Um, and I could easily go in there and take my entire allowance, quarter by quarter, and walk out 2 hours later with nothing in my pocket. I say that to say it kind of translates a little bit to how I kind of go up and down with my own personal spending. I do allocate and budget for personal spending, but I frequently, almost every month, go over budget. Um, so it does kind of, relate to me that at 7 I was kind of doing that, and at 40, almost 47, I'm doing that as well. Much lesser extent, obviously, because I'm not broke. I have savings, I have emergency fund, but it does make sense. And going back to the stats that I talked about in the opening, um, there's a lot of youth who don't know really anything at age 7 when it comes to money. I want. They pout and tantrum when they don't get it, but they never understand this costs money. The concept of I had to save to buy you this son or daughter.
Yeah.
So yeah, that 7 age is interesting.
Yeah.
Simple solutions for complex problems. For over 15 years, SRE Solutions has provided today's solution to prevent tomorrow's problem. SRE Solutions will provide you effective, efficient, robust, and reliable business intelligence, application and website design, wired and wireless network installation, PC support services, and much, much more. For more information, visit their website at www.sresolutions.org. That's www.sresolutions.org. So now for my favorite segment, my guest called First Thoughts. It's sponsored by SRE Solutions Inc. For those of you who are tuning in or listening or watching for the first time, like I always say, shame on you, but I'm happy you're here. First Thoughts is a segment I do with my guests where I offer them a word or a phrase to get their first thought. Obviously, I don't make my guests privy to this before because it would violate concept of first thoughts. So, Rachel, are you ready for some first thoughts?
I'm ready. I've been excited about this segment for a little while, so let's see how good I do.
Okay. All right. So first thought. I like to do a softball one. I think it's a softball one. Zero-based budgeting. What's your first thought?
I love it. Love, love, love. Oh,
And you
you
can
want me to
elaborate
elaborate?
if you
Okay,
want to.
so
Yeah.
I always say you have to give your money a place to live. You have to give every dollar a home. If not, it will go roaming the streets or Target aisles or whatever looking for a
Mhm.
home. And so if you do zero-based budgeting, just everything needs to be in some type of category. Even if it's just miscellaneous, it still needs to be accounted for. You need to know where every dollar is going.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's kind of the method I use. Although, like I said, some of my categories I go over, kind of take from other categories. Like, it's budgeting to me is how do I look at it? If I have it, I spend it. Um, and I like to enjoy life. I like to do things that bring that peace you're talking about to life. So I never put myself in a position where I compromise my finances.
Mm-hmm.
However, there are times where I don't save my budgeted amount or I don't put away my budgeted amount because I took something from it. But I try to come back the next month and like, all right, bud, you did that last month. You can't do that this month. At the end, I have yearly goals. And so as long as I get to the end of the year with those goals, that's what kind of makes me happy.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's been some Decembers, and my birthday is in December, so that's kind of like a no. We're going to frill the hell out of that month, um, and so I need to have funds to frill that month. And so, getting to November, I'm like, oh Lord, I can't eat on Tuesday, type of thing. Um, yeah, so zero based budgeting is kind of what I use. Some people employ envelope budgeting, which is kind of the same concept. So yeah, I love zero based budgeting. I think if everything has a job, you can't say, well, what do I do with this money?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and I usually roll over into savings, whatever envelope, if you will, doesn't get used.
Yeah.
So, next first thought, and you kind of touched on part of that world or that section of credit and debt, but debt consolidation companies. What's your first thought?
It depends. It depends. It depends on a lot of different variables. I mean, if we're talking about like student loan debt, that can get really tricky because if you have federal loans and you're consolidating the private, you're losing some perks there doing that. And often, sometimes when we consolidate that, the interest is guaranteed even if we pay it off early. A lot of
Mm,
times, those companies who consolidate the debt, they front load the interest.
mm,
So you're not really saving if interest if you pay it off early. So I don't really like that at all. Um, but there are other scenarios where you do a balance transfer for some credit cards or something like that, and this particular credit card has 18 months zero interest or whatever it may be, and the balance transfer fee is a lot less than you would have paid in interest on those three cards. Things like
mm,
that make sense. So it's really about like the numbers, if it makes sense. Oftentimes, what I have seen is that people consolidate debt for convenience, not to save money, right? Because
mm,
I have six smaller student loans and I don't want to have to try to keep up with these six payments with these six little guys. So I'm going to consolidate to have one big monthly payment. It's like, well, you're just doing that for laziness and you're not
mm.
really saving money. You're not, you know what I mean? You just want
Yeah,
to so I think it's really about, again, if the numbers make sense and checking your motive of why you're doing this. If you're looking for the easy way out, the easy way out is almost always a little bit more expensive because you pay for
yeah,
convenience. And so um, depends.
yeah. One of the things I found over the years with the consolidation loans or transferring a credit card to say 0% for 21 months, like you mentioned, is that's great, and you roll that other credit card into the other one, but then you start using that credit card again. And so now you got this payment and you got this payment when you could have had nothing. Or the other one is your student loan example. I consolidated 6 student loans and I'm saving $50 a month. And so where's the gain out? Granted, you can take something with that $50 and do something, pay off that, whatever, but people don't. And so great, you've added terms of, to your months. So you've consolidated your loans, but save $50.
Right.
And in the long run, it doesn't really help. So, next first thought, extreme budgeting. And before you answer, I'll kind of give unless you want to give the definition, that I can give the definition a little bit
No, I want to hear yours.
for
I want
that.
to hear yours.
So, what I did in my research when it came to extreme budgeting, it was basically looking at non essentials and removing them from any type of spending. So, in your case, Netflix, right? I have Netflix, I have Hulu, I have all that stuff. Um, Removing that type of stuff, but also looking at, say, you go grocery shopping, where I'm not spending money on anything that's more than this per pound, that type of stuff, to the point where you're bare minimum, not skin and bones, literally, but skin and bones spending to maximize how much available cash you have to pay down debt.
So I think that everyone should do that for a certain amount of time. For
Mm-hmm.
it's awesome that you're going to be able to save money, but mostly for mindset purposes. I lean into the mindset more than the numbers because your mindset controls your assets. So it's like one of the big things that I teach in my classes with the young people is the difference between a need and a want. And we sit there and list them out. Like we list them out.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be able to communicate with your mom and dad in case of emergency. You want the latest iPhone. You need, nourishment. You want Chick-fil-A. I don't know, right? We create these scenarios in the classrooms with the young people, and once that particular class is done, I stand and I clap for them and I tell them, you're ahead of a lot of adults who cannot decipher the difference between a need and a want. And I think that these kinds of exercises with the extreme budgeting lets people know that, you're gonna live if you can't watch Netflix for
Yeah.
a certain amount of time. You're gonna live if you have to change the brand that you're buying your food, right? Like it's gonna be fine. You may even be surprised that you like the off brand better than what you've been buying, right? I don't know. Um, but I think that that's something that everyone should kind of just have in their toolbox as of experiences that I know for sure if something happens in the future that I'm going to be perfectly fine off of
Mm-hmm.
these bare minimums. For some of my clients, I'll create a regular budget, but then an emergency budget. And I was doing it for a while and like no one was really using it. But during the pandemic, I got emails like crazy saying, Coach, we instantly switched to your emergency budget. My husband lost his job. My wife, whatever it may be. I was hearing that a lot. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's the same what you're talking about. It's the bare minimum. I make everyone say, how much do you need to live for a month? Like, what is that number? If you for your household, what is that number of things that you absolutely need for a month? And everyone needs to know what that number is. So even if the extreme budgeting is not like something you do all year, but I think that just for mindset purposes and resetting purposes, I think that everyone should do it at least once or twice in their life.
Yeah, and I think one thing that COVID kind of got a lot of people got me into it a lot more was meal prepping and doing that type of stuff. And side note, you mentioned Chick-fil-A. I'm literally after we're done recording ordering Chick-fil-A. But one thing, meal prepping got people doing that over the pandemic and lockdowns and all that, and you realize really quickly, like, holy crap, I'm saving not 10 but like hundreds of dollars a month by
Yeah.
not eating out. And granted, I'm in a phase right now where I'm traveling so much, I'm eating out a lot. I had this conversation this weekend, but when I'm home regularly, I meal prep on Sundays, I cook for the week. I have my one night that I kind of cheat, which is Tuesdays. I get tacos on Tuesday, which I'm getting today. um, but saving a lot of money. I actually saved a lot of money in COVID. One, because we weren't going anywhere. I wasn't traveling. I wasn't going to happy hours. I wasn't eating out. I was meal prepping like crazy. And I found that I was grilling a lot too because I had nothing to do but sit on my deck all day. Um, and so it's an opportunity to really. And the one thing I liked about extreme budgeting, when I kind of looked up all the definitions, I kind of went to different sites, and everybody has different definitions of what level of extreme is actually considered extreme. But they all kind of came around the concept that you just talked about, which is needs versus wants. Um, and the thing is, how do you, like you said, your mindset is the key. How do you get someone to train in the mindset that all the things I've been used to, I can shut off half of it, 25% of whatever that number is that equates to need versus want. That's got to be the trickiest part, right? How do you get somebody to see that it's okay? You don't have to be scared of it. Like, you don't have to say life's not going to crumble if you, like you said, don't watch Netflix. Don't me. I need to stop buying Amazon so much. But how do you get someone to see that? What's the best way to see that? Is it just looking at dollars and cents and saying make a choice?
I start with the end in mind. Like, what is your ultimate goal for your life? We're talking
Mm-hmm.
about. I feel like we throw the term generational wealth around a lot, and I think that there are two big pieces of that we're just missing out of the conversation. A is like holding on to it long enough to pass it down. Like, you're not even holding on to it long enough to pass it down the next month. Like, you're talking about
Mm-hmm.
the next couple of generations, right? Like, if that's your ultimate goal, you need to that's a daily thing that you need to be focused on that, because um we don't know how long we're going to be here. We don't know how much time we have.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's number one. The second piece that I think that we're missing is like making sure your kids know what to do with what you leave them, that they can do the same, right? They can
Mm-hmm.
plan it and invest it and multiply it. And so, again, going where the piece is missing. A lot of people are having fun today, but they are terrified of what's going to happen tomorrow, what's going to happen next year, what's going to happen if they lose their job, what's going to happen if their spouse passes away or whatever, or if they go. Like, so I kind of just go straight to that, because oftentimes the power of our fears are going to outweigh the hope of our goals. Like, we all have goals. We all know we should do better. We should drink more water. We should, we have lists, right? we should walk more, take more steps. We have this whole list, but like, do we really do it? We don't really do it, but we are constantly doing things all day that we're running from fears, right? So if you have these fears and you want to run from them, let's be clear about how you can prevent these things from happening. And so I'm always going to just use that. That's the goal in mind, not for me to get you to where I want you to be, because we all have our own definition of financial freedom. um but so that is the way that normally helps me to be able to, that light bulb normally goes off when we start talking about those two really big pieces,
Hmm.
just legacy and generational wealth.
Yeah, and speaking of, it kind of leads into my last first thought. Life insurance. What's your first thought?
Life insurance is great. Life insurance is great. We often either we're underinsured, right? Like we don't have enough to that's going to cover our expenses, that's going to cover our debt, that's going to cover whatever. So that's an issue that we need to address. But we also, again, don't have a plan for this money, right? I sit down with my client and he says, "Hey, I'm leaving my daughter $2.3 million when I pass away," and I'm like, "Well, what do you want this teenager to do with that? Like, do you
Hmm.
know? Do you know? Does she know?" What?
Yeah, right.
Because I can only imagine. I'm pushing 40. Somebody go ahead and leave me $2.3 million
Hmm.
now. I'm gonna be like, what is happening? What do I do? And even as a finance coach, I would still be like, what do I do? So I think that we unfortunately believe that it's like magic, that we're gonna leave here and this check is gonna come. The check, the life insurance fairy is gonna come, and everybody's gonna automatically know what we want them to do. They're going to automatically know the best thing to do in the middle of them grieving a horrible loss. And I think that is unrealistic and b unfair. And so
Hmm.
oftentimes it does more harm, than good. So I, of course, have life insurance, but also have a plan for it, and update it when you need to update it. Have the meetings, the family meetings once a year or whatever it is you need to do. Just make sure you're clear. You have enough. You have enough to cover your expenses and those things. So
Okay. So that's the end of first thoughts. And now this season, I started a new feature called TO First Thoughts, which gives my guests the ability to throw one back at me. So, Rachel, if you had a first thought for me, what would it be?
oh, I would say, okay. So what are your thoughts on having personal finance being taught in schools, like widespread?
So, not only do I think that should be a part of school curriculum, I think we should go back to home economics and a lot of life skills that we just don't even teach anymore. We're so focused on that. And trust me, I'm a STEAM guy. I'm a science, physics, math, double major, all that stuff. So, I get that STEAM is important in school. I get that history, although depending on where you're getting taught it, not exactly great history. But I think the life skill stuff, wood shop, home economics. What was the other one we used to do? What was the third one that was in some school? A lot of music programs and arts programs are taken out of schools. I think all those things lend to just pieces of what could be a good individual and good human going forward. Because even if you don't do music or wood shop or home ec in your real life, you learn skills. A lot of people can't cook. I mean, you're not meal prepping because you can't cook. Um, Sorry, I felt some type of way about that one. Um, but I really did. It came out. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's a safe
But
space
no,
here.
yeah, safe space, safe space. But no, personal finance definitely, I think, is something that should be carved out in the school curriculum, especially as you talk about the younger. I mean, we learn math starting really early. We can have a section of even that math class that talks about personal finance. It's not to say it's just numbers, but it's just numbers. And so why not?
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many people argue against that I hear on a consistent basis. The argument is that they're going to teach it with, propaganda or whatever, just like they do with everything else. Like, they always compare it to history. Like, hey, they decide how they want to teach certain neighborhoods or certain children history. They decide how.
Hmm.
We don't want them to do that when it comes to money, because we don't want them to program our kids early in whatever way that they want to do that. So those are the arguments that I've heard on the other side about it. But I'm for it. I'd love it. I'd love for them to have some type of foundation to start the conversation. You mentioned in your stat, and I know this because I talk to parents, that they're even scared of even starting a conversation. But maybe if there was a budgeting class at school, and maybe they said a thing or two that could be, a little bit different from what you want to teach your kid in your household, but they now have this language to come back home and say, hey, this is what we learned in school today, and you can start the conversation that way. So and veer to how you, again, same thing our parents did with history and every other thing. They're like, they taught you that? What?
Yeah.
So that was good to
Yeah, because I
learn.
know, like when I was in high school, we had to make a choice between French and Spanish. I chose French because I have no idea why I tell you the truth. I just took French. But why can't we also have a track of personal finance? Why can't that be a choice? I don't want to learn language. Whether it's right or wrong. I mean, you can learn one, don't learn one. I have never, except one time I was actually in France, and I sort of understood people. I couldn't speak it because it was 4 years wasted really for me. But if there's a personal finance track, I'm pretty sure, because again, I'm a STEAM guy, borderline nerd, really all the way nerd, but that would appeal to me a lot more than French and Spanish. So I don't see why we can't offer that as well.
Yeah.
All right, Rachel, I do want to thank you for stepping into Dave's head. Before I let you go, as I do with all my guests, to give you opportunity to speak on anything or talk about anything or promote anything. If you want to, feel free to do so.
Well, you can follow me if you're on Instagram. You can follow me at Pep Talks _. If you are anywhere else, if you're on Facebook or LinkedIn, I'm Rachael Hanible. And also my website, if you want a one-on-one or if you want a group session with kids or adults, you can go to rachelhanible.com, RACHAELHANIBLE.com to book or request a session. And for Amber's Magical Savings Box, you can go to Target, Walmart, Barnes and Noble, Amazon. You can go to everywhere. Anybody who sells books, you can get Amber's Magical Savings Box.
She said bestseller. Come get it.
Bestseller.
All right, Rachel. Tell the truth. I was better than Fox, right? And all them. Much
Come
better.
on. It's
Yeah.
a no-brainer. Eyes closed. You gave me way more time, and I was able to laugh and giggle.
That's what's up. That's what's up. All right, Rachel. Thank you again for stepping Dave's head. Have yourself a great rest of the year.
Thank you, too.
My absolute favorite segment of my podcast is my GRIN, which stands for Great Reason to Be in Love with Now. I talked in my opening segment about a great weekend I had where I was elected to a regional board position as Director of Publicity, and I received the highest honor the Eastern Region of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated can bestow on a brother, the Larry A. Mungen PBS, or Prominent Brother Service Award. But those were only plateaus or goals to achieve. What's next? The short answer is work. But what goal is next on the plan? An article on LinkedIn, Point of Completion, You Achieved Your Goal, Now What? By Gilligan talks about goal setting and how her, quote, most important and unwavering commitment is to pursue growth, not perfection. Tell that to a Capricorn. You've probably experienced the exhilaration that comes with being at the finish line, feeling immensely proud of the achievement. But have you ever felt sad and deflated after receiving a huge goal, she says. We talk about goal setting, making a plan to achieve it, and the hard work needed to actually succeed. But we don't usually talk about what happens once an audacious goal is accomplished. She continues, pretty soon, you come down from the high. Reality sinks in. Life can feel dull. And the normal routine you missed can feel oppressive. It may feel like your body and brain are going through endorphin withdrawal, being deprived of purpose-boosting fuel. Where do you go from here? What is next? Lastly, she says the ultimate objective of goal setting is to deliver on your promise to self. Therefore, it is a never-ending endeavor. With every new goal you achieve, you set the stage to move forward to the next growth phase. And she gives 5 ways to move on to the next step, which can be difficult. You can get that goal accomplished. I can get the election won. I can get the PBS award. But now what? What's my next goal? How will I further the Eastern region through the position I have? She gives 5 ways to move on to the next step. The first is get back to the basics. She says success is equated with achievement, and achievement is assumed to be the benchmark for true character, satisfaction, and happiness. She continues, once you understand what is the way you truly want to contribute and have an impact, it's easier to maintain a positive mindset and emotional wellness beyond any specific goal or achievement. Figuring out what you want to do, what your impact you want to have, what the impact is that you want to have, goes a long way to saying, I reached this plateau. What do I want to do next? How do I want to impact? What steps do I want to take? What things do I want to see from my impact? And making those goals, setting those goals, the steps to the next plateau. Get back to the basics. Why are you here? Is a really non-feeling way to put it, but why are you here? What do you want to do? What impact do you want to have? Number 2, she says, live in the direction of your purpose. There are many ways to live in accordance to your purpose or calling. Live. Every goal will move you forward and help you get stronger and better. Goals are meant to, or a means to an end, a tool to keep focus on your overarching intention for how you want to be and how you want to live. Each goal stacks up. With time, you will end up with a considerable amount of impact. Again, that word impact. The way to achieve big is through small goals and micro habits to improve 1% every day. Live in the direction of your purpose. If you have a means to an end goal, you want to be this role or that role, you want to see this level of success or that accomplishment, 1% every single day to get you there. Don't time it. It doesn't have to be tomorrow. You don't have to panic if you don't have it all laid out on little, gold brick road. Live in a direction, 1% every single day. But do number 3, think one goal ahead. Our goals craft how our life flows. Always be thinking ahead to the next goal, the next adventure. There's nothing quite like something to look forward to and get excited about. Every ending is the beginning of something new, and every beginning is always an opportunity. Our life's journey is in equal parts nostalgia for what was, and anticipation of things to come. It's not just about tomorrow, it's about the next day, and the next week, and the next month. Now, there's a saying that says something around the fact that if you want to make God laugh, make a plan. Understanding that life, things happen. But the idea of goals is that there's a direction established for where you want to go. And you understand the 1% you need every day to get there. Live in the direction of your purpose and think one goal ahead. After you get back to the basics. Number 4, emphasize effort over end result. Now, I got a slight Capricorn problem with this one, but we're going to go through this one first. She says, when you focus on the work and the effort you put in repeatedly day in and day out, results will follow. Keep goals and achievements in perspective. Making the effort to push beyond the comfort zone is necessary for personal growth. However, chasing specific outcomes or putting too much emphasis on accomplishments can be counterproductive. Nothing will ever satisfy the achievement monster lurking inside us. Thus, the best strategy is to reach balance between making the effort and trusting that there's a greater plan unfolding. Now, I get it that in order to have that 1% every day, you have to emphasize the effort of that 1% over the results accomplished every single day. Perfect sense. I'm in full agreement with it, except I'm not. Because I'm a Capricorn. We want to see progress every day. We want to see a goal every day achieved. We want to actually see that 1%, say 1.00 at the end of every day. And so that's the struggle that, someone like me, Capricorns, people that share our personalities. If you ever take the personality test, and I forget what I am, like NGJD, whatever the 4-letter acronym is, it speaks a lot about perfectionism and looking for finish lines that are marked clearly so that you understand where the next goal is or the next plateau. And so where 1% every day is great in a mindset to have, or great mindset to have, I should say, actually seeing that 1.00 is something that people with my particular mindset or personality struggle with. Because if we see 0.99%, that's not success to us. Even though in the grand scheme of things, we could do 1.01 the next day, and guess what? Over the course of 2 days is 2.0, but we struggle with that. The last one, number 5, reflect and learn. Reflecting on an accomplishment gives positive reinforcement to everything that was successfully achieved, as well as provides ideas for things to do better. Acknowledge what you have learned and how you have grown. But know there is still more to learn, farther to go, and further to grow. Apply the lessons learned and insights to link the past to the future you want to create. I think there's no better exercise than, even after success and especially after failure, taking time to reflect and learn. Even though I won my campaign, even though I was awarded the highest honor of the PBS award, there are still things I could have done better in that campaign. There are things I could have done better in my packet submission, probably for the award. There are things I could have done better to make my packet better submitted because I would have had the accomplishment. And because, short story, it's a rubric. So you get points for different things that you've done in a fraternity and a community, and a combination of the two. There's more I could have done in a community. There's more I could have done in a fraternity to ensure that my points were higher. Ultimately, I achieved what I needed to get the award, but looking back and reflecting on not the perfection of getting the award, but the steps that I took to get there, the incompletion of things that I could have completed. It wasn't perfect because I'm not perfect. Looking at my campaign, there are ways I could have ran that better, I'm sure. And so we're still in decompression phase. So reflecting and learning is still something to be done in both those areas, but we're also spinning up to do the work. And so those 5 things, getting back to the basics, living in the direction of your purpose, thinking one goal ahead, emphasizing effort over the end result, and reflecting and learning upon the completion of successfully achieving something are 5 ways that you can employ to move on to the next step after you've completed a goal and had success. Lastly, she wraps up in a way that I think is amazing to look at. She says, celebrate and honor who you are now as you work to become the best possible version of yourself. Remind yourself of these 3 things. Find value in setbacks and use past mistakes as teachers, something I 100% employ. Number 2, dedicate yourself to personal excellence and making an impact. If you know me, making an impact is a huge part of who I am. Giving back, my time, talent, treasure, mentoring, big things. Personal excellence to me is being successful in those areas and having an actual positive impact. And number 3, keep stretching beyond your previous level of comfort to reach new heights. It's important to me to have an impact with any organization I'm part of. And there are organizations I'm now a part of at this moment in life that I wasn't 2 years ago. And 12 years ago, I wasn't part of Phi Beta Sigma. And so all the organizations I'm a part of, one of my things is to have an impact. I'm not going to just sit around and do nothing. And if I see deficiencies, I'm going to point them out. I'm very forward that way. And so reaching new heights to me could be something personal that I actually achieve, and in this case, an election and an award, or it could be seeing the organization I'm a part of improve and reach new heights. And so remind yourself of those 3 things: to find value, dedicate yourself, and keep stretching beyond your previous level of comfort. But I think in that 3rd one, reaching new heights does not have to be you. It could be someone you're a part of or something you're a part of excelling higher than they were when they first encountered you, and that being a reward as well. So check out the article on LinkedIn, Point of Completion, You Achieved Your Goal, Now What, by Gilligan. I want to thank Rachael Hanible for stepping into Dave's head, dropping a couple gems. I hope you tuned in and paid attention. Check out her website at www.rachaelhanible.com. That's RachaelHanible.com. You can find her on Facebook and LinkedIn at Rachael Hanible. So just search for Rachael Hanible. On Instagram at PepTalks_. So at the word Pep Talks, PepTalks, and then the underscore symbol. If you don't know where that is, just hold down Shift and hit the little line thing next to 0. There you go. Support our sponsors, SRE Solutions, Inc. at www.sresolutions.org for all your PC support services and so much more. And Adapt to Adopt at www.adapttoadopt.org for all information and initiatives around adoption. There's so many youth in this country who could use much from people. And if you're interested in sponsoring on Dave's Head in 2024 Season 5, reach out and we can make it happen. Lastly, this season, I started the last thing I'll do during my GRIN, which is leaving you with a quote to cap each episode. The quote this time is from Thomas Henry Huxley. And the quote is this: "The rung of a ladder was never meant to rest upon, but only to hold a man's foot long enough to enable him to put the other somewhere higher." In a spirit of goal setting, accomplishments, achievements, reflection, and moving on to the next goal, think of the ladder. It's there to go one step at a time. Every rung, one step at a time. So rewards, missing piece, and goals. All great reasons to be in love with now. That's all for this episode of Dave's Head. New episodes released on the second and fourth Friday of the month. For all things Dave's Head, check out our website at daveshead.card.co. Subscribe to watch new episodes on YouTube or Spotify video, or to listen via your preferred podcast player, go to anchor.fm/Dave's Head Pod. Thank you for watching or listening. As always, enjoy life, because life should be fun. Take care.